What if the people closest to you only respected you because of your wealth? Gabriel Lancaster, a self-made black billionaire, owns one of New York's most elite restaurants, but success has left him feeling more isolated than ever. Desperate to know the truth, Gabe takes a bold step. Disguised as a homeless man, he visits his own restaurant to see how his staff will treat him without the veil of luxury. What begins as a simple experiment turns into a nightmare. Humiliated and mocked by his own employees, led by the very chef he once mentored, Gabe leaves shattered. Worse, when the incident becomes public, his carefully curated empire starts to collapse, and he learns that the betrayal was no accident. Behind it all is someone from his past with a grudge that has simmered for years. His estranged brother, Marcus. But in a shocking twist, Gabe's quest for answers forces him to confront an even harsher truth. Has he become the very man he once vowed never to be? As betrayal and redemption intertwine, Gabe must make a decision that could mend the broken bonds of family or destroy them forever. Underneath it all is an emotionally charged tale of deception, forgiveness, and the dangerous illusions of success, with a plot twist that will leave you questioning what truly matters. Gabriel Lancaster has everything: wealth, power, and a life built from nothing. From the projects to the penthouse, Gabe is a billionaire who owns one of the most exclusive restaurants in New York City, where the elite clamor for reservations and perfection is the only standard. But behind the pristine facade, Gabe feels disconnected. From the people around him, from his success, and worst of all, from the man he once was. Determined to find out who he can trust without the influence of his fortune, Gabe makes an unusual decision. For one night, he will disguise himself as a homeless man and visit his restaurant incognito. What starts as a social experiment quickly spirals into a nightmare. Humiliated by his own staff and mocked by the very chef he once mentored, Gabe leaves his restaurant shattered and unrecognizable, wondering if the empire he built is nothing more than a golden cage filled with deception. But when word of the incident leaks to the press, everything begins to crumble. As rumors of financial ruin spread, his business partners turn on him, and his personal life implodes. Determined to uncover the truth, Gabe embarks on a dangerous investigation that leads him into a web of betrayal far more sinister than he imagined. Someone close to him orchestrated his humiliation, and the truth is about to break him. In a shocking twist, Gabe discovers the architect behind it all, his estranged brother, Marcus, a man left behind in the shadows of Gabe's success, whose resentment has simmered for years. But the truth is just the beginning. As Gabe and Marcus confront each other, long-buried secrets rise to the surface, forcing Gabe to confront the hardest truth of all. Has wealth turned him into the very man he once despised? In the gripping final moments, Gabe is faced with a choice that could change everything: seek revenge or risk it all to rebuild the broken bonds of family. Underneath it all is a powerful tale of betrayal, redemption, and the dangerous illusions of success, with a heart-wrenching plot twist that will leave readers questioning what truly matters. Perfect for fans of emotionally complex dramas with shocking endings, this novel takes readers on a journey through betrayal, wealth, and the price of forgiveness. Gabe Lancaster, 42, tall and athletic with a commanding presence, smooth brown skin, a neatly trimmed beard, and thoughtful dark eyes. He wears tailored suits, but his posture suggests hidden weariness. In disguise, he looks shabby, dressed in a dirty sweatshirt, with unruly hair and sunken features. Raised in a poor neighborhood, Gabe worked tirelessly to escape poverty, building a restaurant empire. Success has distanced him not only from his humble roots, but also from his family. Haunted by unresolved guilt over leaving his brother behind, he struggles with confidence and connection. His restaurant is his greatest achievement, but his life feels increasingly empty. Marcus Lancaster, 40, thin with a stern demeanor. His deep-set eyes hold a mix of anger and sadness, and his clothes are practical and worn, a reflection of his simple life. His hands are rough, showing years of manual labor. Once inseparable from Gabe, Marcus was left behind when his brother pursued his dreams. He works low-paying jobs and harbors a simmering resentment toward Gabe for abandoning his family. Cunning and shrewd, Marcus orchestrates the restaurant plot as both a revenge scheme and a desperate plea for recognition from his brother. Daniel Myers, chef, 38 years old, broad-shouldered and stocky, with the constant fatigue of a chef. Tattoos cover his arms, and his sharp eyes reveal his ambition. Always dressed in a chef's coat, with a cigarette behind his ear. A former protege of Gabe, Daniel feels overshadowed by his mentor's success. Despite being a brilliant chef, he resents being in Gabe's shadow and is frustrated by the lack of recognition. When Marcus approaches him with the plan, Daniel sees an opportunity to humiliate Gabe and regain control of the restaurant's kitchen. Evelyn Turner, restaurant manager, 35, slim and impeccably groomed, with a sharp jaw and piercing blue eyes. She always wears chic business attire, projecting an aura of control and confidence. Ambitious and calculating, Evelyn resents Gabe's indifference to her contributions to the restaurant's success. She sees Marcus' scheme as a way to destabilize Gabe and carve out a higher role for herself in the business world. Evelyn is the first to recognize Gabe in his homeless disguise, but she chooses to remain silent, believing that his downfall could benefit her. Chloe Evans, Gabe's romantic partner, 30, with warm olive skin and curly hair that frames her face. Elegant but understated in her fashion choices, Chloe's deep brown eyes are filled with empathy. A social worker, Chloe is one of the few people in Gabe's life who cares about him beyond his wealth. However, their relationship has been strained by Gabe's emotional distance. She tries to get him to reconnect with his family, but when the truth about the restaurant incident comes out, Chloe becomes the voice of reason, forcing Gabe to confront his demons. A Michelin-starred restaurant known for its modern decor, featuring dark wood paneling, mood lighting, and large glass windows that offer views of the city skyline. The atmosphere is luxurious and cold, a symbol of Gabe's success and detachment. In Gabe's absence, the staff run it with their own ambitions, harboring resentment just beneath the polished surface. It becomes the stage for Gabe's humiliation and the nexus of the betrayal plot, a spacious, minimalist penthouse high above Manhattan, with floor-to-ceiling windows and elegant furnishings in neutral tones. While luxurious, it feels sterile and lonely, an extension of Gabe's emotional distance from those around him. The penthouse is where Gabe reflects on his life and slowly unravels the betrayal. Small, cramped apartment in a working-class neighborhood, filled with antique furniture and family photos. It has a lived-in warmth despite its modest appearance. This setting highlights the contrast between Marcus's modest life and Gabe's excess, as well as the lingering presence of their shared past. Alleyway near the restaurant description. The dingy alley behind Lancaster House is where Gabe, in his homeless disguise, enters the restaurant. Littered with trash and broken boxes, it's a place the staff avoids except for brief smoke breaks. This alleyway marks the transition between Gabe's two identities, billionaire and homeless, and foreshadows the collapse of his public persona. An exclusive space within Lancaster House reserved for VIP guests, with plush leather chairs and a wall of expensive wines. It is here that Gabe confronts Marcus and the other conspirators in the emotional climax. With the intimate setting heightening the tension and personal stakes of their confrontation, Gabe contacts a private investigator named Julian King, an old friend from his past. Julian agrees to investigate, but warns Gabe that digging too deep may reveal things he won't like. The restaurant surveillance tapes. Gabe asks Julian to retrieve the restaurant's security footage to piece together what happened before and after his arrival. Julian discovers that Daniel and Evelyn met with a mysterious man prior to the incident, someone they clearly feared and respected. Marcus revealed Julian's investigation reveals that the man they met was Marcus, Gabe's estranged brother. Gabe's shock turns to confusion and anger. Why would Marcus want to humiliate him? Determined to understand, he decides to confront Marcus. Family tensions rekindled. Gabe confronts Marcus. Gabe tracks Marcus to his cramped apartment. Marcus is unapologetic, revealing his anger at Gabe for abandoning him and his family in pursuit of wealth. The argument cause. Marcus accuses Gabe of becoming everything they despised, cold, disconnected, and status-obsessed. Gabe defends himself, but seeds of doubt begin to sprout in his mind about his choices. Marcus's revelation suggests that the restaurant staff were not simply following orders, they were willingly going along with the plan, frustrated by Gabe's arrogance and emotional absence. Gabe is forced to face the fact that his wealth has not only isolated him, but has also fostered resentment among those closest to him. The betrayal runs deep. Meeting with Evelyn. Gabe arranges a private meeting with Evelyn to confront her. Evelyn confesses that although Marcus organized the plan, it was not difficult to get the staff on board. They felt forgotten and undervalued by Gabe. Staff conversations cause. Gabe meets with key employees one by one, trying to understand their motivations. Each conversation reveals how his emotional distance has hurt those who looked up to him. Gabe realizes that wealth has blinded him to the needs of others. Daniel's betrayal confirmed cause. Julian confirms that Daniel took bribes from Marcus, believing the restaurant would collapse and Daniel would rebuild without Gabe. Gabe feels the full weight of betrayal from the man he once considered a friend and protege. Chloe's ultimatum. Gabe confides in Chloe. Gabe opens up to Chloe about everything: Marcus' betrayal, the staff's resentment, and his growing self-doubt. Chloe is empathetic but firm, warning Gabe that revenge will only deepen the wounds. Chloe gives Gabe a choice. Chloe tells Gabe he has to decide: continue on the path of revenge or try to make amends with Marcus and the others. Gabe is torn, but agrees to think about his words. The reckoning begins. Gabe's new strategy. Rather than seeking immediate revenge, Gabe decides to take back control of the restaurant by calling an emergency staff meeting. He warns Evelyn and Daniel that he now knows about the conspiracy and threatens to fire them, forcing their cooperation. Rebuilding trust with the team. Gabe speaks honestly with the remaining team, acknowledging his mistakes and promising to rebuild trust. Some of the team are receptive, but others remain skeptical, leaving Gabe with a lot of work to do. Gabe invites Marcus to the restaurant. Gabe invites Marcus to the restaurant after work, hoping for a reconciliation. Marcus agrees, but only to confront Gabe one last time. The final showdown cause. Marcus reveals the full extent of his resentment, that Gabe's abandonment has cost him opportunities, relationships, and his sense of self-worth. Gabe admits his failures, but insists he is trying to change, offering Marcus a partnership in running the restaurant. Marcus's decision cause. Marcus struggles with Gabe's offer, unsure whether it is genuine or another conspiracy. He accepts, on the condition that Gabe step back from day-to-day operations to allow Marcus to lead. An unlikely partnership. Marcus takes the lead cause. Gabe makes good on his promise, giving Marcus control of the restaurant's operations. The staff, seeing Marcus's leadership, begins to warm to the changes. Gabe's new role cause. Gabe shifts his focus to philanthropy, channeling his wealth to help underserved communities. He finds new meaning in his life, reconnecting with his roots and moving away from the toxic pursuit of status. Redemption and closure. Scene 1. Marcus and Gabe build bridges. Gabe and Marcus work together to restore the restaurant's reputation. They develop a tentative but genuine bond, slowly but surely healing old wounds. Evelyn and Daniel's fate. Gabe and Marcus confront Evelyn and Daniel about their betrayal. Evelyn is fired, while Daniel is given one last chance under Marcus' leadership, a gesture of redemption for both parties. The final twist. Chloe's departure cause. Chloe reveals that she is leaving Gabe, explaining that while she loves him, their paths are now different. Gabe accepts her decision, heartbroken but understanding that letting go is part of his growth. Marcus's final change. In a surprising turn of events, Marcus announces that he will sell his stake in the restaurant and leave New York. Gabe is stunned, but respects Marcus's choice, realizing that his brother wants to find his own path rather than live in Gabe's shadow. Gabe's reflection. Alone in the restaurant for the first time in months, Gabe reflects on everything that has happened: the betrayals, the losses, and the unexpected moments of grace. He smiles to himself, knowing that he is finally free from the burdens of his past, ready to live life on his own terms. The city pulsed beneath Gabriel Lancaster's penthouse, a blur of lights and rain-soaked streets far below. Yet the view did nothing to calm him. He stood barefoot on the cool marble floor, his hands tucked into the pockets of his silk robe, and stared out at the city through the wall of glass. It should have felt like triumph. This was the life he dreamed of since his days growing up with nothing. But tonight, his wealth felt hollow, his accomplishments like gold-plated chains holding him captive. He glanced at the clock on the wall. Midnight. He should be asleep, preparing for another day of meetings and negotiations. But sleep had become as distant as the man he used to be. The problem wasn't just exhaustion. It was deeper. He had begun to wonder if anyone around him truly saw him anymore. Was it his wealth they respected? His power? Or had every relationship in his life become transactional? He'd fought his way out of poverty, but had he lost his humanity along the way? The question gnawed at him. He needed to know. Needed to strip everything away and see who people really were, without the influence of his wealth. And so, standing there in his cold, beautiful home, Gabriel made a decision. He would step outside his world of privilege, just for one night. In the walk-in closet, Gabe rummaged through boxes, searching for something forgotten. Finally, he found it. A beaten-up hoodie from his college days, a pair of faded jeans, and some scuffed sneakers. He put them on, each item pulling him further away from the billionaire persona that clung to him like a second skin. He caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. The transformation startled him. With his beard untrimmed, hair tousled, and the hood pulled low over his face, he looked nothing like Gabriel Lancaster, owner of the prestigious Lancaster House restaurant. He looked like someone from the world he'd left behind, a world he had tried hard to forget. As he tied his shoelaces, he noticed a family photo wedged between some books on a nearby shelf. He picked it up. There they were, his younger brother Marcus beside him, both of them grinning, their mother standing proudly behind them. That was before life had pulled them apart, before Gabe chose ambition over everything and everyone he'd once cared about. He set the photo down, a pang of guilt heavy in his chest. Tonight wasn't just about his staff. It was about proving to himself that he hadn't become the man Marcus always said he would, cold, disconnected, and obsessed with status. Gabe pulled the hood tighter over his head. It was time. The streets of New York were alive with noise, a symphony of distant horns, chatter, and the hum of rain against pavement. Gabe merged into the shadows, head down, becoming just another nameless figure in the night. He wandered through the neighborhoods surrounding his penthouse, testing his new identity. A woman glanced at him warily as he passed, clutching her purse tighter. A man on a bike swerved to avoid him, muttering under his breath. The change in people's behavior stung more than Gabe had anticipated. It was as if shedding his wealth had stripped him of respect, of visibility, of humanity. He told himself it didn't matter. This was the point, wasn't it? To see the world without the mask of privilege. But the further he walked, the more uneasy he became. Would his own staff treat him the same way? The thought chilled him, but he quickened his pace, heading toward Lancaster House. The sleek, glass front of Lancaster House shimmered under the city lights, a beacon of luxury. Gabe lingered across the street for a moment, watching as couples in designer clothes stepped through the revolving doors, greeted warmly by the hostess. He couldn't walk through that entrance tonight. Instead, he circled around to the back, finding the grimy alley that staff used for smoke breaks and deliveries. It smelled of stale beer and rotting produce, the pavement slick with rainwater and oil. Two employees leaned against the wall, sharing a cigarette. They eyed him suspiciously as he approached. "Hey," one of them said, flicking ash onto the ground. "No loitering. Move along." Gabe's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He kept walking, the staff's snickers following him as he slipped through the back door. The kitchen was bustling with activity, the air thick with the smells of butter, garlic, and searing meat. No one paid him any attention as he shuffled through, the hood still low over his face. He made his way toward the front of the restaurant, determined to see how the staff would treat him. At the hostess stand, a young woman named Alicia glanced up from her tablet. Her smile vanished the moment she saw him. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone flat. "I'm here for a table," Gabe said quietly. Alicia raised an eyebrow. "We're fully booked tonight. Try somewhere else." He hesitated, feeling a strange combination of shame and defiance. "Please, just for one person." She shook her head. "I said we're full. Now, if you don't leave, I'll have to call security." Just as Gabe turned to leave, a familiar voice boomed from the kitchen. "What's going on out here?" Daniel Myers, the head chef, stormed into the foyer, wiping his hands on his apron. He froze when he saw Gabe, recognition flickering in his eyes. But instead of acknowledging him, Daniel smirked. "Well, look at this," Daniel said loudly. A lost soul trying to dine with royalty. The dining room went silent as heads turned toward the scene unfolding by the entrance. Daniel stepped closer to Gabe, the smirk never leaving his face. "Sorry, pal. This isn't a soup kitchen." Laughter rippled through the room. Gabe's stomach churned. This was no longer just a test, it was a reckoning. And it was cutting deeper than he'd imagined. Daniel leaned in, his voice low and mocking. "Better luck somewhere else, huh?" Gabe said nothing. He turned on his heel and walked out, the sound of laughter trailing behind him like a slap to the face. The rain hit harder as Gabe stepped back into the night, soaking through his hoodie and plastering his hair to his forehead. He kept walking, head down, blending once more into the faceless crowd of the city. But this time, he wasn't just invisible. He felt hollow. The humiliation had stripped him bare, leaving him exposed to the cold truth. The people he had trusted, his staff, his chef, had revealed who they really were the moment they believed he had nothing to offer. As the rain poured, so did the realization. This wasn't just about a night of humiliation. Something deeper was wrong. And it wasn't just with them. It was with him. Gabe stopped beneath the awning of a closed shop, his breath coming out in sharp bursts. The test wasn't over. It had only just begun. He pulled out his phone and dialed the one person who might help him uncover the truth. Julian King, the private investigator who had cleaned up messes for him in the past. When Julian picked up, Gabe's voice was steady, but his mind was swirling with the storm that had just begun to brew. "Julian," he said, "I need you to find out what's really going on." Gabe leaned against the cold wall of a convenience store, the phone pressed to his ear. The rain had let up, but the chill in the air clung to him. It took 2 rings before Julian King answered with a familiar grumble. "Didn't think I'd hear from you again, Lancaster," Julian said, his voice thick with sleep. "I need your help," Gabe replied, his words heavy. "It's personal." There was a pause. Julian had known Gabe long enough to sense that this wasn't just business as usual. "What do you need?" "I need you to look into some people for me," Gabe said. "Evelyn Turner, Daniel Myers, and someone else." "Marcus Lancaster." Julian exhaled slowly. "Marcus, huh? I thought you too." "We're not close." Gabe cut him off. "Not anymore." Julian was silent for a moment, then gave a low chuckle. "All right, Gabe. But you know digging this deep could uncover things you won't like." Gabe's jaw tightened. "I need to know. Start with the restaurant, everything that's happened in the last few months. Surveillance footage, payroll changes, anything unusual. I'll pay whatever it takes." "I'm on it." Julian hung up without another word, leaving Gabe standing in the dark street with a mixture of anger, regret, and determination. The next morning, Gabe sat alone in his penthouse, watching the city awaken through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He used to find peace in these moments, watching taxis weave through the streets, seeing the early risers go about their lives. But today, the view only deepened his sense of isolation. He sipped his coffee, its bitterness doing little to mask the sour taste of last night's humiliation. His own staff, people he had hired, trained, and trusted. And yet, they had turned on him the moment they thought he was powerless. His phone buzzed. A message from Julian. "Got the tapes. Meet me at your office." Gabe set the cup down, staring at the phone. His stomach churned. Whatever the footage revealed, it would change everything. There was no going back now. Gabe arrived at his private office in Midtown, a sleek space designed for discretion. Julian was already there, sitting at the conference table with a laptop open in front of him. "Morning," Julian muttered, looking up briefly before pressing play on the first video. The footage from the restaurant filled the screen. Gabe watched in silence as the events from the previous night unfolded before him. There he was, shuffling into the foyer in his disguise, the staff sneering, Daniel's voice cutting through the laughter. Gabe leaned closer as the video rewound. Julian paused at a critical moment, Daniel and Evelyn talking to a man in a dark coat, his face obscured by the restaurant's dim lighting. Julian tapped the screen. "Recognize him?" Gabe squinted. The way the man moved, the tilt of his head, it all felt disturbingly familiar. And then it hit him. "Marcus," Gabe whispered, his voice barely audible. Julian nodded. Your brother was there before you showed up. He didn't just stumble in. He was meeting with them. The weight of the revelation settled over Gabe like a heavy blanket. Marcus, his own brother. Why would Marcus be involved? Gabe muttered, more to himself than to Julian. We haven't spoken in years. Julian leaned back in his chair, studying Gabe with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Maybe it wasn't just about humiliating you. This feels personal. Gabe's mind raced, each piece of the puzzle falling into place. Marcus's resentment, Daniel's frustration, Evelyn's ambition. It all made sense now. They hadn't just acted on a whim. This was planned. But why? What did they hope to gain? Gabe left the office with a knot in his stomach. As the elevator descended, memories flooded his mind. Memories of growing up with Marcus, their shared struggles, and the promises they'd made to each other. Somewhere along the way, those promises had broken. And now, it seemed, Marcus wanted revenge. Gabe knew what he had to do. He couldn't move forward without confronting his past. It was time to find Marcus and get some answers. Marcus's apartment was exactly as Gabe remembered. Small, cramped, and filled with the same worn furniture from their childhood. He knocked on the door, his heart pounding in his chest. The door creaked open, and there stood Marcus, his face a mixture of surprise and defiance. Well, Marcus said, leaning against the doorframe. Look who finally decided to visit. I need to talk to you, Gabe said, his voice steady but tense. Marcus crossed his arms, smirking. About what? The weather? Gabe stepped forward, his eyes locking with Marcus's. About what you did. At my restaurant. Marcus didn't deny it. He didn't even try to hide his involvement. Instead, he invited Gabe inside, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey and sitting across from him at the small, cluttered kitchen table. You want to know why I did it? Marcus said, swirling his glass. Because you left. You forgot where we came from. You built this perfect little life for yourself and left the rest of us behind. Gabe clenched his fists, struggling to keep his composure. I worked for everything I have, Marcus. I didn't abandon you. I just wanted more for myself, and in the process, you became everything we hated growing up. Marcus shot back. Cold, disconnected, obsessed with status. You built an empire, Gabe, but you lost your soul in the process. The argument stretched late into the night, the brothers exchanging accusations and painful truths. You think I wanted to humiliate you? Marcus said, his voice cracking. I wanted you to see what you've become, to make you realize that the respect you think you have, it's not real. Without your money, you're nothing to these people. Gabe stared into his glass, the weight of Marcus's words sinking in. I didn't want to hurt you, Marcus whispered. I just wanted you to remember who you are. Gabe stood, his heart heavy with regret and unresolved anger. You think you know me, Marcus. But you don't. Marcus shrugged, finishing his drink. Maybe not. But I know enough. As Gabe left Marcus's apartment and stepped back into the cold night, he knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. His brother's words echoed in his mind, forcing him to confront truths he'd spent years avoiding. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about redemption, about finding a way to reclaim the man he used to be. And the first step would be fixing the mess at Lancaster House. Whatever it took, Gabe would make things right, but he also knew one thing for sure. The game had just begun.